What if I told you that the most important moment in a court case isn't some big, dramatic courtroom speech? What if it's actually a piece of paper on a secret, high-stakes mission? Today, we're diving into the surprisingly intense life of a legal document.
I mean, think about it for a second. For any kind of justice to be fair, the court has to be 100% sure that you, the person at the center of it all, were actually notified. But how can they prove it? How do they make sure you really got the message?
Well, to figure that out, we're going to follow the journey of one of these documents, and we'll use Yemen's civil procedure and enforcement law as our map. And you're about to see, this isn't just about shuffling paperwork. Nope, this is a meticulously planned operation where every single detail is absolutely crucial.
Okay, so just like any critical mission, this one has some very strict rules of engagement. These are the absolute foundational protocols that lay out who can deliver the message and when they're allowed to do it.
The mission boils down to two key rules. First, you've got the messenger. The delivery has to be made by an official court bailiff. The only, and I mean only, exception is in a true emergency, where the person who filed the case can deliver it themselves. And then there's the clock. This mission is on a serious curfew. No deliveries before 6 in the morning, none after 6 at night, and absolutely never on official holidays.
So what happens if there's a real emergency? Well, the law has a built-in override switch. You can deliver a notice outside of those hours, but it is a very big deal. It requires a clear case of necessity and, this is the important part, you need written permission directly from the president of the court. We're talking high-level authorization for when time is truly of the essence.
All right, so our messenger has their orders. But what about the document itself? You gotta think of it like it has its own official passport or an ID card. And if even one little piece of information is missing or wrong, the entire mission is totally invalid.
So for this document's ID to be valid, it needs these 6 specific things. You need the exact date and time it was delivered. You need all the details for the person who requested it and the person who's supposed to get it. Then, you need to state the exact purpose of the notice. Now, number 5 is where it gets interesting. You need the name and signature of the person who physically took the paper, or a formal note saying they refused. And finally, the bailiff signs it. If you miss any one of these, the document is legally worthless.
Okay, rules are set, documents valid. Now it's time for the action sequence, actually getting the message to its destination. This is where all that careful procedure smacks right into the real world. And, things can get a little complicated. So, Plan A is the perfect world scenario. It's simple. It's clean. The bailiff finds the person wherever they happen to be and hands in the paper face to face. Boom. Mission accomplished.
But, come on, we know people aren't always that cooperative. So what happens if the person sees the bailiff coming, crosses their arms, and just says, "Nope, not taking it"? Does the whole thing just grind to a halt?
No way. The process doesn't stop. The law has a really clever escalation plan. If the person refuses, the bailiff can actually turn to the community. They can deliver the notice to a respected community elder, the local village authority, or even the nearest police station. The second that happens, the notice is considered legally served. The system basically says, look, you can't just pretend this isn't happening.
A direct refusal is one thing, but what about targets that are even harder to pin down? I'm talking about people with no known address, or targets that aren't even people, like big companies or government agencies.
So for someone whose location is a total mystery, the solution is actually pretty simple and pretty effective. If they've given a bad address or just disappeared, the notice gets posted on the public announcement board right at the courthouse. And from that moment on, it is legally considered delivered. The responsibility to stay informed flips back to that person.
The law also lays out a really precise chain of command for everyone else. For a big corporation, you serve the notice to its manager or the head office. For someone in the military, it goes to the president of their unit. For a prisoner, it's handed to the prison director. And for someone who's out of the country, the notice takes a trip through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Basically, every single entity has an official gatekeeper.
So, we followed this little piece of paper through curfews and refusals and notice boards, even through diplomatic channels. And after all that, you've got to be asking, why? Why does all this incredibly specific detail matter so much?
Look, this isn't just about creating red tape for the sake of it. The whole point is to create, and this is a quote, a precise framework to ensure judicial announcements reach the concerned parties correctly. Every single rule we just went over is there to guarantee fairness with as much certainty as humanly possible. It's the very foundation the whole justice system stands on.
So this entire system is built for procedural perfection. But it does leave us with a pretty big question to chew on, doesn't it? When it comes to justice, what's more important? Following these intricate rules down to the very last letter, even if it slows everything down? Or is it better to just get to a fair result as fast as possible? It's that fundamental tug of war between process and outcome that every legal system on Earth has to grapple with.